The member for Fredericton Southern, leader of his party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't know what was brewed in the coffee this morning, but I'm not going near it, I'll tell you that. The Finance Minister has said that the only reasonable solution to our healthcare crisis is to seek a one-time demographic-weighted healthcare agreement from the Government of Canada. I agree. The Premier has said that having the federal government fund health care for our aging population is a priority of his, and I'm glad it is. It's an important priority. Our history tells us, however, the only way to get a fair shake in Confederation is when New Brunswick premiers have corralled the other Atlantic premiers to present a common front to Ottawa. Mr. Speaker, has the Premier traveled to Charlottetown to meet with Premier Dennis King to begin to build the Atlantic coalition we desperately need to gain access to our fair share of the Canadian health care transfers from Ottawa?
The Honourable the Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I haven't traveled to Charlottetown. I've spoken to Dennis King, and I've also, though, we had a conference call yesterday with all premiers across the country, getting ready for a meeting of all premiers in Saskatchewan in July. And one of the agenda items is obviously healthcare, and it is one of the main areas of focus for all of us across the country. And I realize, as Minister Morneau said, that we are the canary in the coal mine in many areas, and I know that healthcare is certainly one of them. So it is a main topic. It is getting national interest. It is getting provincial interest, and it's a topic on the national scene with all premiers in July. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Fredericton South.
Mr. Speaker, the interests of other premiers in other parts of this country are not the same in this region. In fact, some of them will fight this priority the Premier has said that he's set out to get an improvement in our Canadian health transfer because of our demographics. They will fight it, Mr. Speaker. I don't understand why he spent time traveling to Saskatchewan and Ontario to meet with those premiers in those provinces when they don't face the challenges that we do. It seems as if he's been distracted by a political crusade while our ER physicians are ringing the alarm that wait times are dangerously slow, threatening patient safety right here in New Brunswick. He knows that our health system is not adequately funded to contend with the demands of an aging population, Mr. Speaker. In the 1950s, it was a sustained and cooperative campaign by Atlantic politicians, led by Hugh John Fleming, that successfully ended the chronic underfunding of our region. We find ourselves in that position once more. Will the Premier show leadership and bring the Atlantic colleagues together for a healthcare summit to address this problem?
Hear, hear. The Honourable the Premier.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's not the 1950s, it's 2019. And in regards to that, Mr. Speaker, the reason I'm spending time talking with premiers across this province and across this country is in relation to getting bigger issues on the table that will help finance the future for our health care and our education systems and our social systems. We can work here in isolation, Mr. Speaker, and we can talk about being all connected jointly with the Atlantic provinces, and that's right, we want to be. But that has happened in unprecedented terms in the last 4 years, Mr. Speaker, with the federal government. And what has it done for this province? What has it done for Atlantic Canada? It hasn't done much. No. So you know what? I've decided that I want to align myself with every other province. We have a province in the middle that provides a blockade to us, and that's Quebec, in many issues. That's why a corridor, discussion about a utility corridor is important. We want to connect with the rest of the country. We have trade issues between provinces that's worth about $60 billion that we don't take advantage of. And one of the barriers to those trade issues is the borders in Quebec. That same issue exists in Ontario as exists in New Brunswick. We get allegiances, Mr. Speaker, to get the job done. That's the reason.